Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and there is one lone wolf out there that has done some real journalism with a mainstream publication, the Columbia Journal Review. His name is Tim Schwab. I'm sorry, the Columbia Journalism Review. And I'll tell you what, this is what you want to show somebody that doesn't understand how people buy influence and how the world actually works. All right, how paid for propaganda Disney style works. And when I say Disney style, again, go all the way back to NBC. And remember, NBC Universal, just so you know, guess what? Guess what? Oh, yeah, that's right. They sat on that Event 201 exercise. You get what I'm saying here? It's all a big club. It's all a big PR club, right? And then that piece, what they do? They dressed Bill Gates and a bunch of billionaires up like what? Superheroes. Superheroes. That's realistic. That sounds like what billionaires are. They should be compared to superheroes. Give me a break. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a long broadcast, and not because hopefully I'm long-winded. I'm going to read this article start to finish. Now, that being said, I'm definitely going to have to interject on points in this article, not so much like that last one. So this could be a 30-minute, 45-minute. I have no idea how long this is going to go, but this is an extensive article that, again, if you want the flair, if you want the other side facts, I guess you could send this video to somebody else. But if you want just the straight dope on Bill Gates, send people this this article on Bill Gates. It is called Journalism's Gatekeepers, and it is extremely, extremely important right now, really more than ever, when people don't understand how nefarious this guy truly is. And I'm telling you right now, Bill Gates, he's not your friend. So before we read this, again, YouTube may deem this harmful content they have financially, right? We've now been locked down without any financials, totally demonetized for 4.5 months, over 3.5 months ago. We did it live here, right? Thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share, where we asked for a review. We dare say, hey, we should be heard as well. So the documentary films, they're free. Loose Change Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture, all free right here, right now. You can follow me on Rockfin as well. And like I said, thumbs up, subscribe, ring that bell, and right there in that playlist section, you just go to my channel, boom, all the docos are right there. All right, let's not keep you waiting any longer. This is what real journalism looks like. And again, props to Tim Schwab right here for being gutsy enough, okay, ballsy enough to come out against the new dark overlord of humanity, Bill Gates. All right, Bill Gates, chairman of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in 2019. So this is actually, is this by Samuel, that's the photo, I'm sorry, I was going to say. Last August, NPR profiled a Harvard-led experiment to help low-income families find housing in wealthier neighborhoods, giving their children access to better schools and an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty. According to researchers cited in the article, these children could see $183,000 career greater earnings over their lifetimes, which, by the way, is minuscule. Is if you live to like 70 years old, let's just go with 70 years old. That means a little over 2.5 grand, maybe more. A striking forecast for housing program still in its experimental stage. If you squint as you read the story, you'll notice that every quoted expert is connected to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. How about that? Which helps fund the project. And if you're really paying attention, you'll also see the editor's notes at the end of the story, which reveals that NPR itself receives funding from Bill Gates. Well, how about that? NPR's funding from Gates was not a factor in why or how we did the story, reporter Pam Fessler says, adding that her reporting went beyond the voices quoted in the article. The story, nevertheless, is one of hundreds NPR has reported about the Gates Foundation or the work it funds, including myriad favorable pieces written from the perspective of Gates and its grantees. Huh. You mean NPR is biased? I can't imagine. That sounds crazy. I mean, you couldn't buy out NPR or any other media outlet, right? That sounds like that sounds like a conspiracy theory, folks. And that speaks to a larger trend. Let's see. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. We didn't want AOC in a mask, of course. See, when I don't have my regular setup, guys, it's not as cool. Thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share. An ethical issue with billionaire philanthropists bankrolling the news. Yes, they're so loving. Do you really think that Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or David Rockefeller or his foundation or any of these people really care about you? The Broad Foundation, whose philanthropic agenda includes promoting charter schools, at one point funded part of the LA Times reporting on education. How about that? Charles Koch has made charitable donations to journalistic institutions such as the Poynter Institute, as well as news organizations such as the Daily Caller News Foundation that support his conservative politics. And the Rockefeller Foundation, how about that? Imagine that, funds Vox Future Perfect, a reporting project that examines the world through the lens of effective altruism, often looking at philanthropy. Let's see. As philanthropists increasingly fill in funding gaps at news organizations, a role that is almost certain to expand in the media downturn following the coronavirus pandemic. Think about that. Philanthropy. And under-examined worry is how this will affect the way newsrooms report on their benefactors. Nowhere does this concern loom larger than with the Gates Foundation, a leading donor to newsrooms and frequent subject of favorable news coverage. I recently examined 20,000 charitable grants the Gates Foundation had made through the end of June and found that more than $250 million going towards journalism. That's $250 million, folks. Recipients included news operations like the BBC, NBC, Al Jazeera, ProPublica, National Journal, The Guardians, Univision, Medium, The Financial Times, The Atlantic, The Texas Tribune, what's that say? Gannett, Washington Monthly, Le Monde, and the Center for Investigative Reporting, charitable organizations affiliated with news outlets like BBC Media Action and the New York Times Neediest Cases Fund. Media companies such as Participant, whose documentary Waiting for Superman supports Gates' agenda on charter schools, journalistic organizations such as the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, the National Press Foundation, and the International Center for Journalists, and a variety of other groups creating news content or working on journalism, such as the Leo Burnett Company, and an ad agency that Gates commissioned to create a news site to promote the success of aid groups. I mean, that was all in one breath, guys. Think about that. I mean, my goodness. Think about that right now. Like, think about how long it just took me to rattle off all those different organizations that he's paying $250 million towards. Just so everybody understands. Beat journalists, especially the younger kind after this, they don't make so much. And it really depends on what market you're in. But you're not looking at something that pays like, 100. You're not making six figures, I can tell you that. You're not even close. I mean, to get to that level, you'd have to be pretty high. All right? So $250 million goes a long way for Bill Gates. In some cases, recipients say they distributed part of the funding as subgrants to other journalistic organizations. See the shell groups? Which makes it difficult to see the full picture of Gates' funding into the Fourth Estate. So what he's saying there is, by the way, we didn't even just cover all of it. It's even dirtier than we just said. The foundation even helped fund a 2016 report from the American Press Institute that was used to develop guidelines on how newsrooms can maintain editorial independence from philanthropic funders, a top-level finding. There is little evidence that funders insist on or have any editorial review. There should be no evidence. Forget little evidence. No evidence. Notably, the study's underlying survey data showed that nearly a third of funders reported having seen at least some content they funded before publication. So that's just a limited hangout of saying, yes, we found out at least a third of these people that were funding media did get to pre-approve content. That's a nice way of saying it. You get what I'm saying, guys? Let's continue on. Thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share, everybody. Gates' generosity, oh, he's so generous, appears to have helped foster an increasingly friendly media environment for the world's most visible charity. 20 years ago, journalists scrutinized Bill Gates' initial foray into philanthropy as a vehicle to enrich his software company or a PR exercise to salvage his battered reputation following Microsoft's bruising antitrust battle with the Department of Justice. Today, the foundation is most often the subject of soft profiles and glowing editorials describing its good works. Imagine that. Yo, Schwab kills it in this. You need to share this article. But the thing is that you actually have to get somebody to think for themselves and read. You know, not just read the headline. Because this is a long one. Like I said, this is going to be a long broadcast. We're still kicking out the jams here. During the pandemic, news outlets have widely looked to Bill Gates as a public health expert on COVID, even though Bill Gates has no medical training and is not a public official. PolitiFact and USA Today, run by the Poynter Institute and Gannett respectively, both of which have received funds from the Gates Foundation, have even used their fact-checking platforms to defend Gates from false conspiracy theories and misinformation, like the idea that the foundation has financial investments in companies developing COVID vaccines and therapies. In fact, the foundation's websites and most recent tax forms clearly show investments in such companies including Gilead and CureVac. And remember, we had, I believe it was Derek Bros on to talk about those very things. Okay? Think about that. And remember, this guy's on record at the latest World Economic Forum saying what? Saying what? Oh, yeah, it's a 20-to-1 payout. 20-to-1 payout. But, you know, billionaires don't want to profit, or they want to control people. They want to be great. They love us all, right? In the same way that the news media has given Gates an outsized voice in the pandemic, the foundation has long used its charitable giving to shape the public discourse on everything from global health to education to agriculture. A level of influence that landed Bill Gates on Forbes' list of the most powerful people in the world. The Gates Foundation can point to important charitable accomplishments over the past 2 decades, like helping drive down polio and putting new funds into fighting malaria. But even these efforts have drawn expert detractors who say that Gates may actually be introducing harm or distracting us from more important life-saving public health projects. Exactly. See, this guy's the dude. You know, if you look, those are 2 links to show you, hey, maybe we shouldn't have GMO mosquitoes to fight malaria. And, you know, distracting us from, hey, maybe they should have clean and running water. Maybe that would stop a lot of the malaria and the other health issues. But no, let's jabs in the arm. I get it. Jabs in the arm. I get it. Jabs in the arm. I get it. All right, let's continue on. Thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share, folks. From virtually any of Gates' good deeds, reporters can also find problems with the foundation's outsized power if they choose to look, but readers don't hear the critical voices in the news as often or as loudly as Bill and Melinda's. News about Gates these days is often filtered through the perspectives of many academics, nonprofits, and think tanks that Gates funds. Sometimes it is delivered to readers by newsrooms with financial ties to the foundation. Huh. How about that? I can't believe it. And financial ties to the foundation. Wait, the news? The Gates Foundation declined multiple interview requests for this story and would not provide its own accounting on how much money it had put towards journalism. So what he's trying to say is that $250,000, that's a ballpark. That's ballpark. It's probably way more. That's what I can get away with and prove right now. But we don't know how dark this gets. In response to questions sent via email, a spokesperson for the foundation said that the guiding principle of its journalism funding is ensuring creative and editorial independence. Oh my God. Yes, I'm sure that's it. Yeah, you know what? Let's believe that. The spokesperson also noted that because of financial pressures in journalism, many of the issues the foundation works on do not get the in-depth, consistent media coverage they once did. When well-respected media outlets have an opportunity to produce coverage of under-researched and underreported issues, they have the power to educate the public and encouraging the adaptation and implementation of evidence-based policies in both the public and private sectors. Meaning, we will tell you what is real and we will tell you how to think so we can control you. That's what that really means. Okay? As CGR was finalizing its fact check of this article, the Gates Foundation offered a more pointed response. Recipients of foundation journalism grants have been and continue to be some of the most respected journalism outlets in the world. I bet they are. So I love that word respect. You know what? I may be the Rodney fucking Dangerfield of the internet, but that's okay. I don't need any of these billionaires and their minions' respect. I need the respect of you out there that knows something's wrong, that knows they've been lied to, that can share this article, which is just this is one of those things that is an amazing tool. If you can sit somebody down and say, listen, just read the whole thing. Don't skim through it. Just read it top to bottom. If you're interested, hit the sublinks because there's so much here. Okay? Let's continue on. The line of questioning for this story implies that these organizations have compromised their integrity and independence by reporting on global health, development, and education with foundation funding. We strongly dispute this notion. Okay, so when we say we strongly dispute it, that doesn't mean it's not real. That means prove it, motherfucker. We're billionaires over here. We're on the side of other billionaires. See what you can do to us. But the truth's a powerful thing. And there's a lot of truth right here, folks. The foundation's response also volunteered other ties it has to the news media, including participating in dozens of conferences, such as the Perugia Journalism Festival, the Global Editors Network, and the World Conference of Science Journalism, as well as helping build capacity through the likes of the Innovation in Development Reporting Fund. The full scope of Gates giving to the news media remains unknown because the foundation only publicly discloses money awarded through charitable grants. How convenient. How convenient. Not through contracts. In response to question, Gates only disclosed one contract, Vox's, but did describe how some of this contract money is spent producing sponsored content. Oh, and occasionally funding non-media, non-profit entities to support efforts such as journalist trainings, media coverings, and attendance at events. Greasing the wheels, telling them how to think. In the same way that the news media has given Gates an outsized voice in we already read that. Wait, did we? Let's see. In the same way the news media has given Gates an outsized voice in this pandemic, the foundation has long used its charitable givings to shape public discourse on everything from global health, education, to agriculture. That's huge and true. And you know it. Think about that. Global health, education, agriculture. This guy is the global This is why he's in my film, Shade the Motion Picture, in 2013. That's why he has a large focus, guys. Schwab is knocking it out of the park. Knocking it out of the park. Over the years, Reporters have investigated the apparent blind spots in how the news media covers the Gates Foundation, though such reflective reporting has waned in recent years. In 2015, Vox ran an article examining the widespread uncritical journalistic coverage surrounding the foundation, coverage that comes even as many experts and scholars raise red flags. Vox didn't cite Gates' charitable giving to newsrooms as a contributing factor, nor did it address Bill Gates' month-long stint as a guest editor for The Verge, a Vox subsidiary, earlier that year. Again, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Still, the news outlets did raise critical questions about journalists' tendency to cover the Gates Foundation as a dispassionate charity instead of a structure of power. Remember we did that video today, peace over power, right? I'm a peace guy, but this is a power move, right? This is Bill Gates wants so much power before he goes. Again, nobody makes it out alive, but he doesn't want the power of love and humanity. He wants to set up a system of power and control for an authoritarian predator class. 5 years earlier, in 2010, CGR, that's the Columbian Journal Review, the one you're watching right now or listening to, published a two-part series that examined, in part, the millions of dollars going towards PBS NewsHour. Oh, PBS, how about that? Which it found to reliably avoid critical reporting on Gates. In 2011, the Seattle Times detailed concerns over the ways in which Gates Foundation's funding might hamper independent reporting. How about that? To garner attention for this issue it cares about, the foundation has invested millions in training programs for journalists. It funds research on the most effective way to craft media messages. Gates-backed think tank turns out media fact sheets and newspaper opinion pieces. Magazines and scientific journals get Gates money to publish research and articles. Experts coached in Gates-funded programs write columns that appear in media outlets from the New York Times to the Huffington Post, while digital portals blur the line between journalism and spin. Not blurring anything. It's pure spin at this point. There is no real journalism anymore. This is journalism. It's very rare. 2 years after the story appeared, the Seattle Times accepted substantial funding from the Gates Foundation for an education reporting project. Man. And again, what I love about this is it has all the citations right there for you. These stories offered compelling evidence of Gates' editorial influence, but didn't attempt to investigate the full scope of the foundation's financial reach into the Fourth Estate. For perspective, $250 million is the same amount that Jeff Bezos paid for the Washington Post. When Gates gives money to newsrooms, it restricts how the money is used, often for topics like global health and education, on which the foundation works, which can help elevate its agenda in the news media. For example, in 2015, Gates gave $383,000 to Poynter Institute, a widely cited authority on journalism ethics and an occasional partner of CGR's, so even the publication that's printing this, earmarking the funds to improve the accuracy in worldwide media of claims related to global health and development. Poynter's senior vice president, Kelly McBride, said Gates' money was passed on to media fact-checking sites, including Africa Check, and noted that she is absolutely confident that no bias or blind spots emerged from her work, or that work, though she acknowledged that she has not reviewed it herself. I'm sure it's fine. Listen, I didn't look into anything, but I'm sure it's fine. The man's a billionaire. I found 16 examples of Africa Check examining media claims related to Gates. This body of work overwhelmingly seems to support or defend Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation, which has spent billions of dollars on development efforts in Africa. The only example I found of Africa Check even remotely challenging its patron was when a foundation employee tweeted an incorrect statistic that a child dies of malaria every 60 seconds instead of every 108. Africa Check says it went on to receive an additional $1.5 million from Gates in 2017 and 2019. Our funders or supporters have no influence over the claims we fact check and the conclusions we reach in our reports, said Noko Magato, executive director of Africa Check in a statement to CGR. With all fact checks involving our funders, we included a disclosure note to inform the reader. Earlier this year, McBride added NPR public editor to the list of duties. How about that? As part of a contract between NPR and Poynter, since 2000, the Gates Foundation has given NPR $17.5 million through 10 charitable grants, all of them earmarked for the coverage of global health and education, specific issues in which Gates works. NPR covers the Gates Foundation extensively. By the end of 2019, a spokesperson said NPR had mentioned the foundation more than 560 times in its reporting, including 95 times on Goats and Soda, the outlet's global health and development blog, which Gates helps fund. Funding for corporate sponsors and philanthropic donors is separate from the editorial decision-making process in NPR's newsroom, the spokesman noted. NPR does occasionally hold a critical lens to the Gates Foundation. I love that. Occasionally, we're not full of shit, okay? Occasionally, we really try to buckle down and eat a shit sandwich for you and give you a little bit of truth. I mean, my goodness. It's wild. It's wild. NPR has mentioned the foundation more than 560 times in its reporting, including 95 times. I'm sorry. Did we already do that? The Goats and Soda? Funding from corporate sponsors. Let's see. I'm sorry. Yes. Where were we? I'm sorry, guys. I lost my things. There it is, right there. Sorry. Last September, it covered a decision by the foundation to give a humanitarian award to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, despite Modi's dismal record of human rights and freedom of expression. That story was widely covered by news outlets. A rare bad news cycle for Gates. Very rare indeed. On the same day, the foundation appeared in another NPR headline. Gates Foundation says world not on track to meet goal of ending poverty by 2030. That story cites only two sources, the Gates Foundation and the representative from the Center for Global Development, a Gates-funded NGO. So in other words, Bill Gates said it, and it has to be true. Guys, thumbs this up, subscribe, and share. I got to have some water. It's a long one. Let's see. The lack of independent perspectives is hard to miss. Bill Gates is the second richest man in the world and might reasonably be viewed as a totem of economic inequality, but NPR has transformed him into a moral authority on poverty and just about everything else out there, guys. And it's not just NPR at this point, right? Given Gates' large funding role at NPR, one could imagine editors insisting that reporters seek out financially independent voices or include sources who can offer critical perspectives. Many NPR stories on Gates don't. Here. I mean, this Schwab dude is killing it, guys. Killing it. Likewise, NPR could seek measure of independence from Gates by rejecting donations that are earmarked for reporting on Gates' favored topics. Correct. Even when NPR publishes critical reporting on Gates, it can feel scripted. In February 2018, NPR ran a story headline, Bill Gates addresses tough questions on poverty and power. The tough questions NPR posed in this Q&A were mostly based on a list curated by Gates himself, which he previously answered in a letter posted to his foundation's website. With no irony at all, the reporter Ari Shapiro asked, how do you encourage people to be frank with you, even at risk of perhaps alienating their funder? In the interview, Gates said that critics are voicing their concerns and the foundation is listening. Eye roll, right? Eye roll, folks. In 2007, the LA Times published one of the only critical investigative series on the Gates Foundation, part of which examined the foundation's endowment holdings in companies that hurt those people the foundation claimed to help, like chocolate companies linked to child labor. Let me repeat that. Linked to child labor. Charles Pillar, the lead reporter on the series, said he made strenuous efforts to get response from the Gates Foundation during the investigation. For the most part, they were unwilling to engage with me. They were unwilling to answer questions and pretty much refused to respond in any sort of way, except in the most minimal way for most of my stories. That's very, very typical of big companies, government agencies, to try to hope that whatever controversial issues have been raised in reporting will have limited shelf life and they'll be able to go back to business as usual. Weird. But isn't that business loving, people? Being great for humanity, Jason? Huh? Bill Gates is here to help. Asked about the dearth of hard reporting on Gates, Pillar says the foundation's funding may prompt newsrooms to find other targets. I think they would be kidding themselves to suggest that those donations to their organizations have no impact on editorial decisions, he said. It's just the way of the world. Two journalists who have investigated Gates more recently cite what appear to be more explicit efforts by the foundation to exercise editorial influence. You think? Writing in De Correspondent, freelance journalists Robert Fortner and Alex Park examine the limitations and inadvertent consequences of the Gates Foundation's relentless efforts to eradicate polio. In the HuffPost, the two journalists showed how Gates' outsized funding of global health initiatives have steered the world's aid agenda toward the foundation's own goals, like polio eradication, and away from issues such as emergency preparedness to respond to disease outbreaks, like the Ebola crisis. The narrative has been lost in the current COVID-19 news cycle as outlets from the LA Times to PBS to Stat have portrayed Gates as a visionary leader on pandemics. Damn straight. During the course of Fortner and Park's reporting, these two stories, the foundation went over their heads to seek an audience with their editors. Editors at both publications say they raised questions about Gates attempting to influence editorial direction on the stories. They've dodged our questions and sought to undermine our coverage, says Park. During Park and Fortner's investigation from De Correspondent, the head of the Gates polio communication team, Rachel Lonsdale, made an an unusual offer to the duo's editor, writing, "We typically like to have phone conversation with the editor of the publication, employing freelancers we are engaging with, both to fully understand how we can help with the specific project and to form a longer-term relationship that could transcend the freelance assignment." In other words, what do they have on us? We'll pay you as much as possible to just drop it and then come work for us. That's what it sounds like to me, but I might be saying some harmful content. That's not what it means, Jason. You're kooky. You're a kooky guy. The news outlet said it rejected the proposition because of its potential to compromise the independence and integrity of its journalistic work. No kidding. In a statement, the foundation said Lonsdale was conducting normal media relations work as part of her role as senior program officer. As we wrote to Tim in December 2019, as with many organizations, the foundation has an in-house media relations team that cultivates relationships with journalists and editors in order to serve as a resource for information gathering and to help facilitate thorough and accurate coverage of our issues. Is anybody's bullshit detector going off after hearing that? And am I the only one? Park says his editors stood behind his work on both stories. But he doesn't discount the foundation's efforts to put a wedge between us and the publication, if not to assert influence outright or to give themselves a channel through which they could assert influence later. Fortner, meanwhile, says he mostly avoids pitching articles to Gates-funded news outlets because of the conflict of interest this presents. Gates funding, for me, makes a good faith pitching process impossible. Impossible. Huh. How about that? Thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. I told you it was going to be a long one, guys. I warned you. Fortner, who authored CJR's 2010 story on Gates journalism funding, self-published a follow-up in 2016 that examined how Gates funding is not always disclosed in news articles, including 59 news stories in the Pulitzer Center of Crisis Reporting, funded in part with Gates' money. The center also declined to tell Fortner which 59 articles had Gates' funding. Yeah, we won't be telling you what articles we bought. Thank you. If critical reporting about the Gates Foundation is rare, it is largely beside the point in solutions journalism, a newish brand of reporting that focuses on solutions to problems, not just the problems themselves. That more upbeat orientation has drawn the patronage of the Gates Foundation, which directed $6.3 million to the solutions journalism. Network SJN to train journalists and funding reporting projects. Gate is the largest donor to SJN, supplying about 1/5 of the organization's lifetime funding. Are we starting to get the picture here, folks? This is the most thorough article out there that you can show any person and say, you don't think this guy influences the media? Let me show you how it works. Like, I get it. It's going to cost you a half hour to 45 minutes of your day. If you're even a slow reader, maybe an hour. If you're actually interested in the subject matter, start thinking for yourself and understanding what's going on and then checking the other source material, could take you a few hours to start really questioning your reality again. But that's why this article is so important. That's why we're reading it the way we are. SJN says more than half of this money has been distributed as subgrants, including to Education Lab, its partnership with the Seattle Times. SJN acknowledges on its website that there are potential conflicts of interest inherent in taking philanthropic funding to produce solutions journalism, which SJN co-founder David Borenstein elaborated on in an interview. If you are covering global health or education, and you are writing about interesting models, Borenstein said, the chances that an organization you are covering is getting money from the Gates Foundation are very high because they basically blanket the whole world with their funding. And that's the major funder in those two areas. Asked if he could provide examples of any critical reporting about Gates emerging from SJN, Borenstein took issue with the question. Most of the stories that we fund are stories that took at efforts to solve problems. So they tend to be not as critical as traditional journalism, he said. Like even admitting, look, I'm sorry, kid, this is how it works. I don't even know if Tim Schwab's a kid. Whoever the hell he is, this is just a banger of an article. A banger. This is also the case for the journalism Borenstein and fellow SJN co-founder Tina Rosenberg produced for the New York Times. As contract writers for the Fix His Opinion column, the two have fairly profiled Gates-funded education, agriculture, and global health programs over the years, without disclosing that they work for an organization that receives millions of dollars from Gates. Twice in 2019, for example, Rosenberg's columns exalted the World Mosquito Project, whose sponsor page lands on a picture of Bill Gates. Lands on a picture of Bill, no big deal. We do disclose our relationship with SJN in every column, and SJN's funders are listed on our website. But you are correct that when we write about projects that gets Gates funding, we should specifically say that SJN receives Gates funding as well. Rosenberg noted in an email, our policy going forward with the New York Times will be clearer and will ensure disclosures. That's a you got us, you motherfucker moment. You know what? Damn it. All right, you got us. We'll admit a little bit. My cursory review of the Fixes column turned up 15 installments where the writers explicitly mentioned Bill and Melinda Gates, their foundation or Gates-funded organizations. Borenstein and Rosenberg said that they asked their editors at the Times to belatedly add financial disclosures to several of these columns. But they also cited 6 they thought did not need disclosure. Rosenberg's 2016 profile of Bridge International Academies, for example, notes that Bill Gates personally helps fund the project. The writers argue that SJN's ties are to the Gates Foundation, not to Bill Gates himself, so no disclosure needed. No, sir. This is a significant distinction, Rosenberg and Borenstein stated in an email. I doubt it. Months after Borenstein and Rosenberg say they asked their editors to add financial disclosures to their columns, those pieces remain uncorrected. Mark Charney, a senior editor at the Times, said he wasn't sure if or when the paper would add the disclosures, citing technical difficulties and other newsroom priorities. It's COVID 1984, bro. Back up. Likewise, NPR said it would add a financial disclosure to a 2012 story it published on the Gates Foundation, but did not follow through. Shocking. In the vast majority of the articles about Gates, NPR makes disclosures. Even perfect disclosure of Gates funding doesn't mean the money can't still introduce bias. At the same time, Gates funding alone doesn't fully explain why so much of the news about the foundation is positive. Even news outlets with no obvious financial ties to Gates, the foundation isn't required to publicly report all of the money it gives to journalism. Making the full extent of its giving unknown, tend to report favorably on the foundation. That may be because Gates' expansive giving over the decades has helped influence a larger media narrative about its work. And it may also be because the news media is always, and especially right now, looking for heroes or running with a narrative. A larger worry is the precedent of prevailing coverage of Gates sets for how we report on the next generation of tech billionaires turned philanthropists, including Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. Bill Gates has shown how seamlessly the most controversial industry captain can transform his public image from tech villain to benevolent philanthropist. Insofar as journalists are supposed to scrutinize wealth and power, Gates should probably be one of the most investigated people on earth, not the most admired. Boom! 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 Listen, you guys know I don't usually read them all. And I definitely, that was a long one. But that one deserved to get read. Remember, if you came in late, this is the article that you need to show your friends and family. Right here. Look at this thing. Look at this bad boy. We crushed it in about 40 minutes, guys. About 40 minutes, and we did it. But there it is. Columbia Journalism Review. Journalism's Gateskeepers. How this hasn't gone viral yet, I don't know. But it really needs to. Folks, thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share on the way out. Remember, I'm fully demonetized here. $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. The link to the GoFundMe is down below. And remember to follow me on Twitter. Check out the documentary films for free in the documentaries playlist section. You can also support me on Rockfin, where there are a lot of other great creators as well. And remember to thumbs this video up, subscribe, share, and ring that bell for notifications. I love you all. It's not about right or left. It is about right and wrong every single time. And let me tell you, Bill Gates, if we do it right, is going to be on the wrong side of history. Love you guys, and see you on the flip.